Geoff Barrow. I'm a kind of jack of all trades in the music business, but more recently film music writer, TV music writer, anything music writer.
And I'm Ben Salisbury, and I'm a film and TV composer, I suppose. Our approach to writing film music, TV music, all starts with the film and the director or the showrunner behind the TV series and what they're wanting music to achieve in their project, and then trying very hard to avoid standardisms where possible. It's the most collaborative form of music writing, or I mean, I'm sure there are lots of other, but it's the most collaborative form of music writing I've come across. You're a service to the film, but you also want to do, composers who say, oh, I just want to hide in the background and not be noticed. I don't think that's true. It's not true of us, because not because of an ego thing, but we have always preferred watching films where the music makes an impact. So in service to the film, but always something that has its, hopefully, we try and give it its own sort of, its own identity. Own identity, yeah.
When it, comes to our work, I find it kind of annoying when you watch a film or TV show and, there's an organ piece and then it jumps to an orchestra and then it jumps to a piano and then it's a choir. To save ourselves doing that and also trying to give a sound for a film that basically becomes part of the film and the language of the tone of the film, we try and create bespoke instruments and effects and so on that basically can still be like shock horror, and it still can be, love and anxiety and all those things that you need, but just with a sound that basically is hopefully original, but also, so it doesn't jump out. All of a sudden you just don't go to the standardisms of basically, someone's crying, so bring in the sweeping strings, but that means that we have to make a palette of sounds that we will stick to throughout the project. Try and stick to. Yeah. But ultimately what happens is that people that don't understand music will just go, well, why can't you just put a piano thing there? And you go, oh no. Because once you break the seal of the piano, then you have to put it in everything, basically.
So if you were using, I did a series called Constellation and decided very early on that using a piano, this is just an example, was actually a good idea because it was a space series and it was a slightly off-kilter, a sci-fi to do solo piano pieces in there. So we did a very bespoke sort of solo piano, very classical, slightly odd, but a classical theme for one of the main characters. The difficulty then was as Geoff said, there was then, oh, well, we can now use the piano everywhere else. And I was like, no, the palette, so there was we do try and make rules for ourselves. The palette in that case was, the piano is a solo instrument. It's not a coloration instrument. We're not just gonna start coloring everything with little wispy bits of piano, because as Geoff says, then you've broken the seal. We don't always get it right by any means. There's pressure from execs and directors and whatever. But in our heads, the ideal is to be quite strict about things, because that's what we like. When we watch films, I like knowing what the music is trying to tell me, and it is being sort of brave and decisive in what it's trying to do. And you get that by saying, if we were literally left to our own devices, we would probably say, this film uses 5 instruments, no more, and this effect, and we're gonna, it's gonna be really singular. We've very rarely got away with that. Maybe that's a good thing. When we do stuff with Alex Garland, we've done a lot of his films. He really likes richness in everything he does, so the look of the film is very rich, and he likes very rich musical scores, and it's quite difficult to do that in a strict, stripped down palette way. But I think we found a sort of happy medium with him, that we'll say, okay, if you want this to be rich, we're going to have to try and find a way of doing that. You know, if it's devs, we're going to really draw on religious music and new age religious music. And so it doesn't have to be, you know, you don't have to change the world with everything you do, music. It doesn't have to be vastly different. But if you sort of concentrate on giving it its own personality, however that might be, and that might be by throwing the kitchen sink at everything, that might be by doing literally the bare minimum, whatever it is. What we try and do is try and be clear in our heads that that is the thing. And
but then also we can work for showrunners and directors and they go, what are you talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
We have no idea what you're talking about. I think we had a meeting earlier this week that was a little bit like that.
Yeah, we did.
It was like, oh, they're not really getting this.
No. It depends on the director and the showrunner, but I suppose if we could bring it back to Alex Garland, because that's the director we've worked with the most times. That's always our in point with him, and it it's a very interesting, and I'd recommend it to students. It's a very interesting way of getting the process started. Is like, what is the palette, and he'll have his ideas, and these things might not actually make the final thing. So little music into what made the final thing, but they give you a starting point.
It does, but also as well, when you're just starting out, you just want anything to work. You just kind of want the director or just to kind of go, you just say yes. Yeah. So kind of like palette building is something you kind of maybe do later on. Unless you come from a kind of electronic point of view.
But I think there are interesting things discussions you can have, which when they go right. So Men is a good example, another Alex Garland film, which went very right for us. Oftentimes the building of the musical language takes a long time with Alex Garland films, which your composition students and film students might not have that privilege. But sometimes there's an immediate thing. So as soon as he told us about Men and the story of Men, the fact that it was, the ghost of toxic masculinity or however you might describe the film, this weird thing about a strange masculine presence, we both said at almost exactly the same time, oh, have you thought of like a male castrato? Obviously there aren't male castrato. Have you heard that recording? There's one that exists. We don't know whether it's fake or not, but there's a recording of a male castrato. But there are now the modern day version, since that process has quite rightly been stopped, is the countertenor, where you train the male voice to sing in a female register. And as soon as we said that to Alex, it's a male voice trained to sing the female register, and it comes from a sort of historically from a patriarchal standpoint of men singing those parts. It's not now, and he just thought that was fascinating, and the fact that it makes an odd sound. So those two things combined, and I just went away and me and Geoff searched up a load of countertenors that are operating today, found some demos of them, got in touch with the ones we liked, had the most sort of interesting voices, and it was during lockdown, so I just said, look, can you get hold of a Zoom recorder, just record yourself singing these demos here. I gave him some notes to sing.
That was basically
the film.
That was the film. So sometimes you can just, if you think about it, rather than kind of jumping on your instruments and looking at the film, think about it. Think about stuff more than just practically playing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. We always say, what's the key to this? And sometimes there's more than one key. There's more than one thing.
More than one character.
But once you find it, it's like, oh yeah, that is so.
And once you get that
satisfying.
signed off by, then you can. It's like almost we can properly relax.
Yeah.
It won't be the stress because we know. They've agreed and we've agreed that this is the sound of the film.
Yeah.
And also, I just think kind of young people kind of going into stuff, a lot of the kind of early scores I've seen of students, like I said, they do really pack a lot of music in because they feel like I've got to hit everything. You've got to hit the door slamming, the whatever. And ultimately, you should just kind of do the opposite. Start with an atmosphere. Like, what atmosphere do you want for this scene? Whether it's a sound effect or whatever, a reverb.
It's one of the best things about my teaming up with Geoff is I came from that very sort of classical composition background doing natural history, which is very overfilled. Some of the first things when I was writing stuff, and Geoff would come in and go, what would happen if you take that out? And I'd go, well, that's the main bit. It's like a piano piece, and you've just removed the piano. He'd go, well, just listen. I go, oh, yeah, right, you know. Sometimes remove the thing that you thought the whole thing was about.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting thing to do in all aspects of filmmaking. We notice Alex Garland does it in his films. He'll just remove the key scene and you'll go, oh, right, okay, or whatever, upend things.
There was somebody that I knew that was friends with both Alex and me. Alex had written the Dread film from 2000 AD character, and this person knew that I was really into 2000 AD and got us together with Alex. We had done some work before, but
done some strings for bands on the
for
label,
bands and stuff like that.
Bits of work together.
But basically, I wasn't particularly confident in in my ability to write music for film. Where I knew that's where Ben was from, and we got on and everything else. So we got together, we started working with Alex, met him. The film was a bit of a write-off because all kinds of kind of political stuff going on. We wrote what ended up being an album called Drock, which is a kind of hard electronic record that we released on Invader eventually. So we met Alex, got on really well. He said it didn't work out on Dread for us because they, like the people that paid the money wanted the music to go elsewhere. And it was the one thing that they could change because it was already kind of, pretty weird as it was. And we said, we don't want to change the music because we're massive fans of it and no thanks. So we left it. He said, look, sorry about that. Next time we work on a film, which was Ex Machina, we'll get you in. And we did. And basically the rest is history, really. I mean, we worked with him closely.
I suppose the key to the longevity of it is the working closely and the working on it for a long time, which I know we touched on in our talk, but it's that getting scripts. Hearing is, he'll tell us the idea he's got for a film before he's even written the script. Yeah. And as soon as he's written the script, he'll show us it. And then as soon as the first, and then we'll visit sets, and then we'll start as soon as the first assembly cut comes along. It's a bit that's a privilege. It's a pain,
it is, yeah.
but it's a privilege. And
you could end up working on something for 2 years. So in a sense of a jobbing composer, it's a pretty weird scenario.
Yeah.
But you will find a director or a showrunner or a writer that you will have a connection with, and you will build up. Lots of directors have their people that they do their scripts, and they're close.
If you're into film into filmmaking, which both me and Geoff are massively, as much as we're into music, we're into films. And so to be part of something from the ground up is a privilege. Yeah,
going on set and seeing the difference in script writing, and it's a fascinating process. Yeah, I mean, we know films that basically they've asked a composer to write music for it, but they're too busy. But they've got loads of ideas that they've done for other stuff, and then literally just delivered that, and then the music editor has made a score out of it.
There are 100,000 different ways to make a film, and 1,000 different ways to make a film score.
Yeah, definitely our way is not the set way.
It's not the set way. It's the way we've stumbled into that. I think A, suits the way we write music, and B, suits our interest in the filmmaking process. So yeah. The most important thing is a discussion. You'll never ever, and it would be great if this was possible, you're never ever going to stop temp music being used at some point, and temp music that isn't yours. The most important thing is discussing early with a creative team, a director and an editor, because it's a sort of mad situation that an editor sat in a little room on their own, grabbing something because they've got to show the assembly cut to the director in an hour's time, and they just need something to work.
Or Netflix or whoever's paying for it.
But even at a very early stage these days, in a TV series, and I know because it's happening at the moment in the TV series I'm working on, they get the dailies back, and the next day the editor, is putting together those dailies to make an assembly of what they shot the day before and is putting music in. Now, we've given a bucket of demos to them to use, but even so, they sometimes reach out. And this is evolving for us all the time. How do you get over this? But what we've decided to do is, I've just spoken to the editor. I spoke to her yesterday and said, look, if you're going to reach outside of what we've given you, that's totally fine. We can't give you everything you need. We don't know what you need yet. Can you just give me a phone call and just say what you're thinking of doing? And 90% of the time, because this editor has got
she's hip to what
she's got the idea of what we're writing, and she gets it right, and I go, that's absolutely fine. But if you then suddenly brought in the particular score we're doing, a big bit of orchestral music, which would sound lovely and would suit these big, scenic landscapes, we'd be in real trouble, because we don't want the score to be that. And as soon as you put that on, someone might go, oh, isn't that lovely? And they're not seeing the bigger picture, which only me and Subi, who I'm doing the score with, and the director really have discussed. So it's about trying to keep control of that vision. I don't know that 100% the best way. We're finding all the time. But the key to it is this thing of having a palette. It's another benefit of that. You get the palette sorted early. The discussions
you do
about
lots
that
of
early,
demos of it.
Lots of demos with it.
Try and give it to them in the edit or whatever. So when they first put it together, they'll use your music.
Yeah, and if not your music, they know what the palette is, so they can work around it. And hopefully, this new thing I'm sort of working on is, if they don't, you can discuss it, because if it goes, and unfortunately it is the nature of the beast. It will still happen to us. It will still happen to everyone. But there's a confidence thing. I feel for students, because it's very hard to do what Mick Levy does, for example, and just go, here's the oddest sound I can think of that just goes brook or something, and that's going to be my score. She can do it because she's an artist and she's amazing. It would be quite tricky for a student to do that, but I think if you've got that in the back of your mind, and maybe you've got the confidence to go, no, this really is the right thing. It's hard. We find it hard even now.
No one's going to come knocking on your door, right? You can be the best composer, electronic musician, producer, whatever, in your own world, in your own head. But basically, unless you're out there doing stuff, collaborating with people will not knock on your door. So I would say you just really need to get out there. You need to put music out, you need to set yourself goals. There are people making music, there are people making films at colleges exactly the same as you. You need to contact them, you need to find the ones that really interest you in their films and offer a score or offer tracks for nothing. That's the way you will get into the business.
Yeah. I don't think probably me and Geoff, neither of us are qualified to say an exact route in. There are, you can read about doing assistant jobs and all of that, and those are all very worthwhile, and there are practical things you can learn about being an assistant. But in a more general thing, I think, sort of carrying on from what Geoff said, is putting yourself out there, and that can be don't sit still would be my main advice. And that can even be when you start, you've got something going. Say you've started writing music for adverts, but you really want to be doing something else. The best thing I did moving from natural history was not sitting still. I started collaborating with Scott Hendy, doing string arrangements for his bands for nothing, but because I wanted to do something different. You just got to be interested enough to go out and do. If you're into writing music, just open yourself up to doing lots of different stuff. If you just say this is all I do, and close doors and don't go out and collaborate with people and meet people, there is an element of just meeting, collaborating. Things happen when you get together with other people, really.
I mean, a lot of people that are creative are not very good at, the good people at it are not very good at selling themselves.
Yeah.
But the filmmakers are exactly the same as you. they're kind of like people that basically doubt themselves and
you
don't know,
no,
you know.
You don't have to be the big I am. It's more about the big enthusiast for everyone else's work.
And also, it's like, oh, well, I haven't been able to find a filmmaker to work with. It's like, there are millions of silent films. There are millions of art-installated like films without scores. Just drag one off of YouTube and score it. Do you know what I mean? And put it out there. You just need a bulk of work, really.
They've both been great. I mean, Subi's obviously was an amazing assistant, and I think she would be the first to admit it wasn't what she set out to do, and she had to work. You know, she's only recently told me this, how difficult she found it. You know, I just thought she was just good at it. And I'd say, do this, we need these stems done, that conform done, and it would come back without a fuss. She's only recently said, you know, it wouldn't be my natural, it wouldn't be Geoff's natural bent,
no,
you know.
thank you. No.
But she got her head down and worked out her own way of doing it, and did it really well. And when I said, or me or Geoff said, oh, just the end of that cue now doesn't work, but you know where you're at, you know the language, you know, it's just that weird brass thing going on there, just extend that a bit, and it would always be good. And it was that process of just gradually more and more, and she was doing her own thing as well at the same time, always doing her own thing. So then in devs, when we got stuck on a particular cue, Subi had sent me a load. I'd just asked the week before, you know, what have you been doing recently? And she sent me a load of her. She hadn't really done it for anything. She'd just done some weird vocal music. And I said, you know what, this would work brilliantly on that scene. Do you mind? You know, we'll credit you. You'll now be a credited co-writer. You know, so she got an additional music credit on that episode of Devs. The track is on the score as written by her. Other series came up where we needed people to actually write, and the whole idea is that you get involved. You start out helping, doing relatively boring stuff, but you understand, you learn the business and what it takes to write a score for a TV show or a series. And then you start actually writing stuff. You know, it sounds simple.
And now she's just done. She's a composer in her own right. Got her own agent.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And gets offered work. You know, I want to make this clear because we made it clear at the start of the talk the other day, is that when it comes to start working for people like us, is your main job will be to burn stems and conform stems of mixes. It's a technical job. So you really need to be up on Pro Tools and Logic. You have to be. Yeah. I mean, you could be an amazing viola player, and you might get a job with a composer that wants you to write out actual music and so on. That's one way to get into the industry. But for most people I know, whether it be Ben Frost, whether it be whoever it is in our world of modern composers, basically their assistants burn stems. And they recreate mixes and send them to the film production, and to the editor. I don't think you can be an assistant without learning, without understanding. And
having a sort of organised mind, really.
Having an organised mind.
Which I would have to work at, but I think I would, you know, if the end goal was the more interesting stuff, which it almost always is, and you know, it's hopefully worth it. The downside is that, you know, realistically, we have to be realistic. There aren't that many opportunities that come about like that. There aren't that many people earning a living writing music in a way enough to employ people to help them out. You can think of it as a dual thing. You know, that's what I think Suvi did so successfully, is that she did her stuff with us, but it wasn't really her. You know, she carried on writing music. Yeah. She carried on doing her own thing.
Evolving
she
as a
was
writer.
Hopefully influenced by us, what we were doing in a good way, or decided, no, why do they do it like that? I could do this in a much better way. All these
Which she obviously can.
Which she can, yeah. I don't think you have to think of yourself as, I'm now just going to be this dog's body. It's like you can do that and carry on writing.
Got to make a decent cup of tea, though.
Yeah. Or coffee.
Yeah.
I think any student, or you would even say as a lecturer, you're not you're not teaching them exactly how to do stuff. You know, there are going to be elements of that, but what is invaluable is everything here, from what I've seen, is a reflection of the industry itself.
Yeah,
and being
really
put
is, yeah.
under pressure to have a workstation. Here's a bit of film, you've got to write a bit of music for it, or here, if you're an electronic producer, here's something you've got to produce, and there's a product at the end. And that's sort of forcing you into scenarios that are very like the scenarios you would face in the commercial world is invaluable. So, you know, that side of it, those students that can sort of suck that up and rise to that side of things, you know, it's quite difficult. I think all musical education is quite difficult to teach people how to write music. You sort of learn that yourself. You can be pointed in direction. Someone can say, oh, I prefer you where you do that to that, or that seems to be working. But to actually say, no, do it in this particular style, I've never found that to be, and it's not 100% necessary. Geoff obviously came up from a very different background of being in bands and just being massively interested in film, but knowing his way around film itself as a medium and music. You know, so you don't have to study, but I think in this day and age where it's so,
it seems like it's preparing you.
Yeah.
The right DBS is definitely preparing you for the industry that you want to get into.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
yeah. There is literally
the facilities, and from you know, I've sat in a couple of reviews of work for the third years, wasn't it? And yeah, it's been great because you can see different ways that students approach stuff, and yeah, it's definitely preparing people in the right way, I think.
Yeah.